So if you're like most Americans, you're worried about your money. You're worried about people taking your money and inflation just evaporating everything that you have. Well, I want to talk about how the IRS is actually going to be coming after us to try to take some of our money. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking, is the IRS really trying to go and hire 87,000 new agents to go after and audit the American people? The answer is yes. The IRS is going to go and hire 87,000 new agents. Well, according to a Republican senator, he is now saying, don't go and apply to work at the IRS. Do not do that because they will ask you to audit your friends, your families, and your loved ones. Now, here's what I can tell you. The Congressional Budget Office confirmed back in August that the $80 billion in additional IRS funding, that is going to be used partially to audit families. And they will have to use some of this money to audit families that are making less than $400,000 per year. However, when you ask Democrats if this is their intention to go after those that are making less than $400,000 per year, go after the lower income families, the middle income families, their answer is no. That was not their intention, and we will not see any additional audits that we wouldn't have seen in previous years. So here's what happened a couple weeks ago. Now, I wanted to wait on this because I was hoping to get more information, but nothing has come out. So here's what happened a couple weeks ago. And I believe this was on September 12th, is Republicans in the Senate, they actually introduced legislation that would deter the IRS from auditing more Americans and small business owners that are making less than $400,000 per year. So, after 2 weeks of legislation being introduced, you would think that Democrats would have jumped on this, right? Yeah, that's exactly what we want. However, that's not the case. And in fact, Democrats have respectfully declined to give the legislation the light of day. Why? This brings up the question, will the Inflation Reduction Act, will this actually go after lower income and middle class Americans? Reports indicate yes, this will happen, and Democrats know that. Now, I also want to touch on something else in this, and I think this is crazy what's going on, but right now, the IRS has to go after lower income and middle income households, because if they only go after the rich, the wealthy, right, the big businesses, what's going to happen? Those people are going to fight the IRS, and the IRS just doesn't have the people or the resources to actually audit them correctly. So, here's what we're seeing reports on right now. Reports are actually indicating that without the audits of lower and middle class Americans, this bill, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, would end up costing much more than what was previously reported. As of this month, the Congressional Budget Office states that the Inflation Reduction Act would reduce deficits by roughly $23 billion over a 10-year period. That's the entire bill, so it means it's going to cost nothing. Good news, right? Well, let's touch on that for a second. Of the $80 billion that's going to the IRS, $45.6 billion of that is designated for IRS enforcement, which means audits. This also means the IRS needs to bring in more than $45.6 billion from audits, or else the deficit reduction wouldn't happen. This was the only reason why Senator Joe Manchin even agreed to this, because it was going to reduce our deficit. That was it. Well, according to the Congressional Budget Office, they say the IRS enforcement would bring in an additional $127 billion over 10 years. Now, this is why experts believe the only way this number can be accomplished is by going after lower and middle income households. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring this up for a couple reasons. The IRS is going to be coming after every single one of us. It doesn't matter what you make, doesn't matter where you work, doesn't matter where you live, they will go after every single one of us. Here's the reason why. according to the IRS, there is a difference between, it's about $600 billion of what Americans should be paying versus what Americans are paying. $600 billion. That's the gap. They're trying to close that gap. Now, I can tell you that businesses who hire a legal team, okay, who hire multiple accountants, okay, tax professionals, they are very good at finding those loopholes. So the chances of a bigger business or a very wealthy individual trying to cheat the IRS, now, does it happen? Obviously it does. We know it does. But are they going to be the most likely ones to try to cheat the IRS? No, because they have teams. This is why reports indicate that the IRS will go after the lower income and middle income households. So, what can you do? Well, the first thing that financial experts recommend is to get yourself a tax professional. If you've been doing your tax returns using H&R Block, okay, now might be the time to get yourself an accountant, okay? You need to have an accountant. You need to have somebody that knows the tax code, okay? You need to have somebody that is their sole job, is to understand it, read the IRS book, right? The tax book. That's what you need, okay? Now, here's the other thing. What some are saying is try not to complicate your taxes. Now, I'm not here to tell you, what's complicated or what's not, but that's what some say. Now, here's my advice to you. Whenever you buy something, if it's for a business, make sure you keep a receipt or you keep a record of it. Buy it on a card, never pay cash. Okay? Have a paper trail. And the reason I say that is because if you ever get questioned on an expense that you had, you can be like, oh, it's right here on my American Express card. Yep, this is my only business card that I use. So a little tip for you guys when it comes to business. Now, here's the last thing I want to say. There's a lot of people that are worried that the IRS is going to come after them for whatever reason. Okay? Now, if you have no reason for the IRS to come after you, then you shouldn't be worried. But at the same time, there's going to be flaws in hiring 87,000 new IRS agents. Okay? So just understand, you may be looked at. Okay? Your tax your tax account may be looked into, but at the same time, just understand that they may come after you or may ask you questions, but that might be all there is. It's just questions. So if the IRS sends you something, which they could do, they're not going to call you on the phone. Okay, don't think they're going to call you on the phone. They're not going to reach out to you on social media. Okay, they will send you a letter. That's how the IRS is going to reach out to you. If they reach out to you, don't push it off. Okay, answer their questions, get back to them, be honest, and that's the way you get out of it. Now, what else can you do? The next thing, probably the biggest thing, is to just be prepared. Have some money in savings. And I know I'm going to get the comment, well, that'd be great if I had money in savings, but I don't. Well, my advice to you is to have some type of reserve, some type of safety net, right? A little cushion. Because if the IRS does come after you, they will hit you with penalties, and you do not want to be hit with penalties. Okay? You want to be able to pay whatever you can as quickly as possible. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more regarding what's going on with the IRS, with potential audits, I promise I will be back here, fill you in on all the latest news and updates. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.